Hey everyone, and welcome to In-House Counsel Insights, which brings together in-house attorneys in a range of practice areas to share their experiences and tricks of the trade. Today, I've got Joe Schulz. He's a corporate attorney at Terra Labor Consulting Group. Hey Joe, what's up? How are you?
Great to see you, Chris.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. We had a great talk a couple weeks ago. Tell me tell us what's Terra Labor Consulting Group?
Terra Labor Consulting Group is a employment labor group. And so what we will do is employers are looking for workers usually in skilled labor. Some of the labor it varies because it depends on who the client is. Some clients are hospitals, some clients are elder care facilities. Lots of our clients are in the construction business for one thing or the other. And so what we'll do is we'll get the skilled labor to the employer. Lots of times we'll try to find people within the US to fill the jobs, but on the occasion that we're not able to find enough, and you see this a lot in the construction business, there's not enough certified welders to go around. There's not enough certified plumbers, concrete fillers in the US to fill the need for construction. So lots of times we have to go outside of the country, mostly in Mexico, but in lots of Latin American countries, to get skilled labor to come to the US. And what Terra Labor does in that instance is if it's for those specific workers, we will work with the Department of Labor to get the PERM certification process for them, and then turn that over to a network of immigration attorneys that we have partnerships with so that they can help them with the USCIS process to get their temporary visas, typically the H-2B or the EB-3, depending on the employer's needs.
That's really cool. So typically the trades, and typically from another country, but predominantly Mexico, bringing in trades to work on projects. I know you mentioned you're from the Valley. I forget exactly, McAllen or something, right? With McAllen?
Harlingen.
Raymondville.
I'm from Raymondville and Harlingen. I'll claim both of them.
I'm actually going to look at a property in Raymondville coming up here. It's a cool little property. I'm thinking turn it into a bunch of like tiny home rentals. But I want to go to Port Mansfield? I want to check that place out because there's cool stuff down there. But yeah, I was at SpaceX and I mentioned that right before the call. And yeah, all those trades guys look like Mexican labor. And my friend was like, "Oh yeah, they bring them in from Mexico. Good deal for a company to have that skilled labor." So we can go through the whole. I do want to get to your background some.
Sure.
Doctor, and why you have doctor in front of Joe Schulz. But since we were just talking about, bringing in labor from another country and predominantly Mexico, let's talk about, the hot topic right now, the immigration policy. Since Donald Trump took office, we've had, ICE raids, other things like that. So it seems like, maybe you've seen some of this or you've at least prepared for some of it. So, is that something you've worked with companies and businesses on preparing their job sites for events like this, like ICE raids?
It's a new topic that's just coming up. I don't know I'm sure the people who are watching this know lots of lawyers are part of some type of bar association, and there's a whole variety. I'm currently a member of the Federal Bar Association, and I'm actually with the Employment and Labor section. And one of the topics that we are looking into is trying to host a CLE sometime in August about what a corporate attorney should do to prepare their corporate client of what to do to manage if there's an ICE raid at their business site. And so the whole question comes down to who are the actors involved. So you have the government, ICE. You have the employees who are the liability and responsibility of the third entity, the corporate employer. Of the employees, there could be three types of employees. You will probably have US citizens. You could probably have resident aliens who have limited rights, immigrants who have limited rights and status, and you might actually be employing some, let's say, immigrants without status.
Got it.
Let's call it that. Sure. And so each of these individuals are going to have different needs and different rights if an ICE raid were to come to their place of business. And so that being said, I think companies need to do things to prepare themselves for that. You have to look at it as a school would look at a fire drill. Everybody has to be trained and prepared. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan of action. You have to have a point person who's kind of in charge of the whole thing. And so if it were to happen, people know what they can and cannot do, and you can advise them of the rights. And I think corporate attorneys need to prepare their clients in the regards of understanding what all these entities are. When it comes to ICE, that's the government. This is a criminal investigation, as it were. So you could be, as a corporation, criminally liable for the actions of your employee agents. So you have to look for what can they do and not do.
Got it.
And I use the example of what happened with Coca-Cola a few months ago when ICE showed up to one of their plants and they gathered everybody into a holding area, and ICE started calling out all these names for all these people who happened to be the people they were looking for.
Okay.
And they were arrested, detained, and the news story was Coke rounded up their employees and handed them over to ICE. You know, that's not exactly what happened, but at the same time, that is what happened. And so social media went after Coca-Cola. Everybody decided to go to Pepsi instead of Coke. Do you remember that? I remember that.
I don't, but that's fascinating. Fascinating story. Gosh, it's so hard to be a company in today's day and age. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, I think that the employees need to know their rights, because I think about it as somebody who works at a job site. And if I'm working with somebody that I find out is somebody without status and is at risk of being deported, I might have a personal relationship with them. And so, corporate attorney, if you're that person, there's certain rights you should and should not do. You should not interrupt the investigation. You should not impede the investigation. You shouldn't do things to get yourself arrested and charged with, obstruction of justice, for example.
Right.
But, at the same time, you're a human being, and this is your friend, this is your homie who may or may not be deported.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors. So I look at it as, again, think of fire drills. You should know, the company should have a plan. These are your exits. This is the procedure. This is what you should do in the case of, let's practice. But it's up to the individual employee to say, I know what the plan is, but I get to choose my exit strategy. If I know that there's 2 exits in a fire drill, I as an individual get to choose, do I want to go to exit A or exit B? And I have to make that choice for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Same ways, if there's an immigration site visit that's unannounced and ICE comes a knocking, every employee should have an idea of what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and then they have to make individual decisions about what they want to do. And the corporation needs to have policies and procedures in place to essentially cover their own backsides in the case that there's some charges against the corporate entity. And so, it's, what it is? It's a mess. It's a whole absolute mess.
Sounds like it.
And I hope nobody has to deal with it.
Sounds kind of like a crisis management plan, too.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. You ever do one of those when you were in the school system?
Yeah, required to do it. And so whether it is evacuation drills, self-containment drills, malweather drills, active shooter protocol, there's a lot of things that go on. And again, you should be prepared for it. I hope nobody has to do it. Right.
So I just alluded to that. So that's where the doctor comes from, right? It's, and you were in education. What were you, a superintendent down there or principal?
No. I was, for 20 years, I was in Texas Public Educations. I was a math teacher.
Okay.
I was a campus administrator. I was a grant coordinator. One district I worked for was in charge of a $3 million grant. I was fiduciarily responsible, so that's kind of cool. But what I ended up doing was I worked with kids who had the most needs. I've worked in the Rio Grande Valley, San Antonio, Fort Bend. I have been in big urban schools. I've been in small rural schools. I've been in very large suburban schools. I've worked with every population of kids. Title I, wealthy families, every single ethnic population. And I loved it. During my time there, that's where I got my master's degree. That's where I got my doctorate degree. That's why I'm Dr. Schulz, because I actually did earn my doctorate of education. So I actually have that. And as much as I like that, I realized that I wanted to do something different. And so I think part of me wanting to go to law school was because I really want to expand my impact inside the school system. People don't realize that schools are just like any other organization. You have to have, if you want growth in an organization, you essentially have to be at the decision-making table. You have to have an advocate at the decision-making table who's going to advocate for you.
Okay.
And I was really inspired at the time by one superintendent that I worked for, because, true story, the guy was an accountant. Like, he came in because he and his buddy worked at a tax firm, and the school district was their client. The superintendent of the school district told the buddy, "Hey, come over here, be my chief financial officer." The buddy came over. He pulled his friend with him. This is my top accountant that's with me. CFO retires. The accountant fills a spot as CFO. Goes back and gets his degree in education, like mine, an EDD.
Yeah.
And becomes an assistant superintendent, becomes superintendent of schools. This guy ran a whole school system for almost 8 years. And not one time did he ever set his foot inside the classroom as a teacher. Not one time was he a principal on a campus managing and running students and teachers. And he's running it. So I'm thinking, like, and he's a smart guy. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy.
Right.
But he's an accountant. If he can do it, surely I could. So I thought, let me go do that. How can I do something that'll get me to the decision-making table? How can I do something that would allow me to really advocate for equity through legal channels? So a lot of my experience dealt with, I understood what educational policy, student rights were.
Right.
I wanted to be the person who's at the decision-making table, who's speaking for them, being proactive for them.
Love it.
And so, law is the tool to empower communities and influence systematic change. So,
and did you ever work in a school kind of towards that end that you were just describing?
No, and actually, to be honest, no. There's a certain level of politics as you get up there into the superintendency, and honestly, I don't know if I have the patience for it.
Right.
What really inspired me more is, as I was in law school, I ended up doing a moot court competition.
Okay.
And the moot court competition coincided with the Hispanical National Bar Conference.
Got it.
And at the time, and I didn't realize it, I just knew I was going to a moot court and we were going to Seattle. That's all I knew. So as I'm there, I'm talking to attorneys who are at this conference. I'm meeting up with them. I find out all these people, they're all in-house counsel. And so up to that point, I hadn't really considered what I was going to do with this law degree, other than this would propel me into an ability to really advocate for change and for student rights. And now all of a sudden, I'm thinking, like, well, these people are all in-house counsel. That's what I want to do. That's exactly what I want to do. And there are, not every school district is big enough to support its own in-house counsel.
Right.
And there's not really education law per se. Like, when people say tax law, criminal law, immigration law, there are firms that specialize in that. Education law is not really a specialty per se.
Yeah.
But there are education law firms. There are big enough school districts that have an in-house counsel person with them. So that became the goal. That's where I want to be eventually.
Okay.
My biggest problem and obstacle is that, again, I'm licensed in Minnesota, live in Texas.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, that's fine. Yeah, right. You'll get there, right? And I guess you just haven't had a chance. You're taking the Texas bar coming up, and
I'll be sitting for this July. I was close enough for the Minnesota one that I was close enough to the Texas standard. So 3 points away. I can do it.
And then how did you end up doing what you're doing, which has a huge, like, it seems like immigration and employment really is kind of the focus there.
Well, so when I first left the schools, my first job was at this little boutique immigration law firm. And I really loved working at the firm because it was really my first experience doing legal work. I love the people. I love my boss. I love the other attorneys that I worked with. I thought it was fantastic. And it was an education on if you want to run a law business, if you want to run a law office, this is the way to get it done, because it was very lucrative from that perspective. So it was an education. The thing was, I wasn't crazy about immigration. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas.
Yeah.
For people who don't know where that is, that's right on the border of Texas and Mexico, right near South Padre Island. Nobody knows anything else. They know South Padre Island. So I grew up surrounded by immigrants, immersed in a bilingual culture.
Right.
That's just the way the life was. So my perspective on immigration has been influenced by that my entire life. I don't see a major, huge deal about it, because honest to God, all these arguments about they're taking American jobs. You mean the job nobody wants to do?
Right.
I don't really see that as you're taking my job, man. Nobody wants to do that job. So, but I do know that many people come to this country legally and illegally because it's the American dream to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, to reach for the brass ring and to attain it.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of immigration. I love the idea of helping people find a pathway to citizenship if that's what they want to do. Or what I'm doing right now, find a pathway to get a work permit to come and work, earn money for your family, send money back to your family, take care of your family. That's a very important thing. So I'm happy to help people like that. But immigration, I'm not in love with the law of it.
Okay.
It was just not what I wanted to practice. I wanted to do in-house.
Right.
So what ends up happening is, as I'm doing this and growing and learning, I'm happy to be where I'm at. I'm just not happy with what technically I'm doing. The Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct change. And so Rule 5.05C, which I have memorized, it allows people like me, somebody with an out-of-state license, to come and practice in Texas for one employer. In-house counsel.
Yeah.
Whenever anybody can read a statute, anybody can read the law, anybody can look up a code, anybody can look up a statute and read it. It takes an attorney to interpret the gray areas. What does it mean? What are the effects? What are the risks that could happen to you if you make that decision? And every state has their own rules. And so if you're not licensed in that state, they don't want you to give out legal advice. Anybody can type up a statute and ask, hey, Copilot, ChatGPT, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me? And it'll give you an explanation. And you as an individual can make a decision and move forward with that. But AI won't tell you the gray areas. They won't tell you the risks or the nuances of the law. You need an attorney to do that. And every state bar association only wants people to interpret their law. So with this rule, I can do that for one employer, Terra Labor Consulting Group.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, and that's definitely an exception that a lot of companies use, right? Many in-house attorneys are working all over the country on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's segue into AI a little bit. We kind of nerded out on that some when we spoke a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So first, I guess we'll jump into AI's impact on lawyers. Sounds like, at least you're saying now it can't interpret the gray area as well as maybe, a 3-year trained attorney plus experience and all that can with a lot of cases and stuff like that. So I guess that's your take on it. Do you think it'll always be that way? Do you think at some point it'll be able to, will be able to interpret for people?
That's a great question. What's the best lawyer response? It depends. I think AI is a great tool. If anybody says anything differently, I would argue against them. AI is a fantastic, wonderful tool. I said it earlier, anybody can look up a statute on their state legislator website, copy and paste it into their AI of choice and say, can you explain this to me? AI will do exactly what you tell it to do. And it'll do it fast, and it'll do it in a way that makes it easy to understand. there's a few problems with AI. Number one, it hallucinates.
Yeah.
It will do exactly what you tell it to. If you tell it to draft me a business proposal for, because I want to open up a business at this address, at this zip code, it's going to do exactly that. It will not look up to see, is the business you're looking at only in a place that's zoned to residential area only?
Mm-hmm.
Is it zoned to commercial? Or it's not going to do, it's going to do exactly what it told you. So you're going to have this wonderful proposal to open up your business in this area that is only zoned for residents only.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how good the argument sounds, it hallucinated. It will make things up to fit the prompt you gave it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful what you say to it. I think people should look at AI for what its purpose was. It was brought about really to automate mindless tasks.
Mm.
I know one of the things that I use it for is I use it to check myself. Recently, I ran into an issue where I'm having some problems with the finance department here at my company. Nothing huge. It's just I'm new. They've been here for a while. And when you're in an organization, there's a lot of relationship things that go on. And if you're a new person, all you have to do is follow procedure. Well, I follow procedure. I'm not getting my needs met. So now I'm feeling a certain way. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling angry. So I write a scathing email to the finance department because I want to give them a piece of my mind. And that's not the professional thing to do, to hit send. Right. So I use AI. Hey, AI, this is a situation. Hey, AI, here's the email. What do I need to change to make it neutral and pleasant and professional?
Love it.
And AI will change my Angry Bird email into a professional one that addresses the point that I needed to. Because we're human beings, we're not going to be able to take our emotion out of things sometimes. So use the tool to make it emotionless. I say this jokingly. I think we should be careful on telling Skynet everything we're thinking.
Right.
I think we all saw how that movie ended. Didn't end
sure.
happy. So it's a good, solid tool, but I think lawyers have a responsibility. AI is never going to replace your eyes and your brain.
Of course.
And so there was that very famous case of that attorney in Wyoming who did exactly this. They were trying to write something. They asked AI to write a draft so they could send to the court, and AI did. It did exactly what they were asked. And AI hallucinated, and it made up a bunch of court cases that never existed. They caught it maybe several months later when the judge is looking at it like, you cited this case, and it's me. You cited a case about me. I don't remember that case. Hey, look this up for me. I don't remember this case. Do you remember this case? Like, maybe I'm old and I forgot something. I don't know. And they come, but this case never existed. They call the lawyer in. You lied. What the hell is this? I didn't lie. I used ChatGPT. Not to throw that one under the bus, but that's one of the big.
Yeah, it is.
What AI is today is what the internet was when we were growing up. Mm-hmm. When we were growing up, the kids who had an Encyclopedia Britannica set in their household had an undue advantage over everybody else. I had all this information at my fingertips. I can plagiarize the crap out of it. Mm-hmm. And nobody cited their sources back then, let's be honest. But I can plagiarize it. If I cite my sources, it's good. But I have it right here. It's in my house. When the internet came on, it brought that to everyone. Several years ago, the question was, what about Wikipedia? Wikipedia is not a viable source. Wikipedia is not a citable source. Anybody can change it. And I know because I've gone on there to comical changes myself. But Wikipedia is very good because they want to be legitimate. Now, only 10 years after its inception, people are allowed to cite Wikipedia because they can cite Wikipedia's secondary sources, which are the direct sources to cite. And so people change over time, and people's attitudes about things change over time. AI is still relatively new. So whether people are using Gemini or Siri or Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever other ones that are out there, the regular person, it's a tool that you're going to have to learn how to use. For attorneys, it's a tool, but you can't just rely on the tool. it's your license. It's not AI's license. So you have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and you're double checking that your AI did not hallucinate. The other thing attorneys have to consider is an open system versus a closed system. So this is the other concept that's going on. So the open system is like ChatGPT. It'll go out to the internet and draw whatever information they have. A closed system would be kind of like what Thomas Rutgers has, what LexisNexis has. They have their own closed system AI that's based upon what they have. So it's only getting in. I think the responsibility attorneys have is whatever AI tend to use, is it an open system or closed system? What about my client confidentiality? If you're drafting a contract and you're looking for clauses and you're trying to do this, am I sharing proprietary information if I were to put it into an open AI source?
Right.
And did I just violate my attorney-client privilege by doing that? And those are the ethical things that we need to consider.
Right. Yeah, those are all good points. So I'm going to end on this question. So my daughter is 15. She's going into her sophomore year in high school. She's interested in some things, but like any good 15-year-old doesn't really know what she's going to do. And I kind of asked her, like she'd have the answer because I don't have the answer, but I'm like, what do you think about AI? Are you thinking about it? Are the schools talking about it? Are they prepping you to go into certain professions to avoid being displaced? So what do you think are like some of the top things that maybe someone could think about? No one's going to hold this against you 20, 30 years later, but if you were going to prep your career and you didn't want to be displaced by AI, I don't think anyone really wants to, what would you suggest?
That's a really great question, Chris. If it's a kid and they're trying to figure out what their life goals are and they don't know, they need to, honestly, get a summer job. Most people growing up, they had some type of summer job. They went and they worked at a fast food restaurant, or they worked in they were a waiter or waitress at a restaurant, some type of service industry, because that's a job you're going to, it's a throwaway job. I'm going to do it for a little time and I'm going to gain some really good skills about working with people, working with difficult customers. That's a good one. How to interact with people, how to be pleasant, how to keep a calm demeanor. These are all life skills that you can learn. But what it does is it makes you have to think about why you're doing it. Is the paycheck worth the squeeze? I suggest this because I think people who are professionals have a hard road to hoe. If I'm a doctor, if I'm a lawyer, if I'm an engineer, and my kid says, I want to be a plumber, I want to be a welder. No, don't do that. That's a step down. It's inherent biases that we have as parents because we don't want our kid to do something that's less. You don't need a college degree for those careers, and those careers will make you way more money than a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer.
Certainly can.
Facts. But I don't want that. If I'm a plumber and my kid wants to become a plumber, you're following in my footsteps. Cool. If I'm a plumber and my kid wants to be an engineer, you're doing something more than me. If I'm a doctor, my kid becomes a doctor, you're following my footsteps. I'm a doctor, my kid becomes a lawyer. Oh, okay, you're a professional just like me. I'll put it to you this way. I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, and my kid wants to become a teacher. Oh, maybe you shouldn't. See, we have as parents these inherent biases about what our kids want to do. I have really counseled 1,000+ kids over my career. And this is what I will tell you to tell your daughter. This is the most honest answer you can. If they don't know what they want to do in life, there's nothing wrong with going to college. Going to college is a pathway for many people, but college is not for everyone. Mm-hmm. And if your kid's not one of those that's good for college, you have to have other conversations. But I put things in terms of economics. If you go to college, you're going to get $100,000 worth of debt easy. If you go to a graduate program, tack on another $50,000 to $70,000 worth of college debt, easy. And those are state school prices.
Yeah.
Not if you go out of state, not if you go to one of the top tier schools. Why would you straddle yourself with that amount of debt? So I recommend, if you don't know what to do, go to college and get a degree in business and in finance. Finance is how to make money using other people's money. And this is the added part. At some point, everybody hates their job. They might love their career. They might love their coworkers. They may or may not love their boss, but they will hate their job. If you're going to hate your 9 to 5, at least let it pay a buttload of money for you.
I agree with that.
So go do finance if you don't know what to do.
Yeah, love it. And in fact, I did finance. There you go. Joe, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing with us. I learned a lot. Thanks, bud.
I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you for having me.